Hi, I'm Samantha, Managing Editor for Jewellery Business. Welcome to Bridge the Gap, how messaging can turn website visits into showroom visits. When it comes to today's shoppers, the majority have completed their research and decision making before ever stepping foot into a store, with the very best leads stemming from a business's website. Most jewelry retailers know this and have invested significant amounts of time and money into optimizing and promoting their company's website to accommodate modern customers. Despite this, many retailers have trouble converting website visitors and depend largely on factory and third-party leads. Podium, an interaction management platform, addresses these challenges in this pre-recorded webcast brought to you by Jewellery Business. Hosted by two of Podium's sales and retail professionals, Nick Miller, the division's vice president, and Jason Aelona, the division's director, this presentation offers jewelry retailers valuable advice on the messaging channels worth focusing on, strategies for converting website visitors to in-store shoppers, and best practices for training staff members on how to use messaging correctly and effectively.
Awesome. Thank you. We're really excited to be with everyone today. Thanks for taking some time out of your day. We have a really exciting webinar ahead of us. We're going to talk a lot about modernizing the way you communicate with your consumers there in your jewelry stores. Obviously, it's titled Bridge the Gap, which is really what we're trying to do is bridge the gap in a number of different ways. Bridge the gap from online searchers and help them convert into in-store customers, bridge the gap on communication with maybe a younger generation that you haven't had to tailor to quite as much as you do today. And again, the communication gap is really what we're going to talk about. Those preferences and how we communicate today has changed a lot from, even the last 5 years. And so we'll talk about how messaging can help drive revenue into your store. And then lastly, we want to end, as we always try to do on our webinars, just with some really nice takeaways. We'll tee it up with obviously some content and just kind of the why behind everything, but then we'll end with really the how and some tips and some tricks that we've learned working with thousands of jewelry stores over the last several years. And even more importantly, sometimes working with some of our partners like Google and like Facebook, just to let you know what's working well for other retailers and how you can just implement what we talk about today. We do encourage questions, and we love that. If you participate and have questions along the way, please put them into the question channel. We want, again, this to be a beneficial 30, 45 minutes for you, and there's a lot of things that you could be doing as you're running a store during this time. So let's make it beneficial for all of us, and if you have questions, make sure you shout those out. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Jason to talk a little bit about just, again, kind of the why and how that jewelry shopping experience has changed.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. Ladies and gents, thank you for the opportunity you've given me today to talk to you guys. We are excited about this webinar and what we're doing for you guys today. I think we're going to go through a lot of cool things, but I want you to take a step back a little bit, and before we jump into this, I want you to put on your consumer hats on too, right? So picture yourself as a customer, because that's what we're going to cover here today, the modern jewelry shopping experience. But in fact, you can also take jewelry out of there and just think about the modern shopping experience, because what we're going to go over today, a lot of the times will seem very basic and common sense, but at the same time, like I said, are you doing these things in your store? All right. Are you making it easier for your customers to shop with you? Think of that throughout this webinar, and if you do, we're gonna leave with some positive things here today. All right, so let's jump into it. Where it all starts, it starts online, right? If you think about your shopping habits, like I mentioned before, right, all the information is at your fingertips. 93% of consumers do research online when trying to find a jeweler. That's where they start. They're not going to go. I remember when I was a young kid going from store to store to try to find the right furniture for our home, jumping in the family van and going from store to store, but that doesn't happen anymore. Essentially, all the information is at your fingertips. You pop open your phone, you find exactly what you want, and then you make a decision to go into the store, okay? That's where everything starts, and I think that's the first thing you guys need to keep on top of mind. On top of that, I think back in 2016 was the first instance in which we saw mobile phone actually take over desktop searching, okay? Ever since then, it's been steadily increasing. So today, I think it's around 60%, and every single year it continues to go up. Why is that? Well, it's in your pocket at all times, at every point of the day. Therefore, At any moment, someone can pull out their cell phone, search something real quick, and within seconds decide whether or not to come into your store. It starts online, but where? It starts on people's mobile devices first and foremost.
Yeah, I think, Jason, I'll chime in. One of the phrases that Google will use often is micro moments, and this is where that mobile is king. Is micro moments really happen on a mobile device when they're shopping for jewelry or anything else. To Jason's point, it typically doesn't happen. They don't block it off on their calendars during their work days. Like, now I'm going to shop for this. It's typically as they're in between meetings, or in between things going on at home. Maybe they're laying on in bed at home, and those micro moments where it's kind of top of mind, they think of it and they're able to get that information very quickly. That's where you want to be optimized for, is taking advantage of those micro moments. And that's why mobile really is king, because to Jason's point, it's in their pocket and they can look at that information right when they think of it.
So just to give you an example, this actually happened to me last night. I swear I go through about 100 charging cords because they always break, right? But last night, sitting in bed, I think, I need some more charging cords for my phone. Pop open my phone, jump right on Amazon, and within seconds, get some charging cords. So it's those micro moments that when someone needs a jeweler near them and someone needs to buy something, maybe if they forgot about Valentine's Day, you guys need to be top of mind, okay? Which boils into the next thing, is they expect convenience. When someone is calling your store, no one wants to be put on hold or listening to hold music, or they're just going to move on. On average, a customer will wait 23 minutes for a response before moving on. I mean, that's the bottom line. So being on top of it, everyone expects convenience, and you can blame Amazon, or you can thank Amazon for that, right? Or these Wayfairs or these Blue Niles, is because once you interact with these businesses, you expect them to interact back with you as soon as possible.
You look at some of the major disruptors of their industry, Amazon being one of them, right? But Netflix, you take Uber, you take in the furniture mattress world, like the bed and the boxes. That is how they disrupted their industry, is they created convenience. And to Jason's point, now it's bled into really everything in our lives, as we expect that the immediacy. Whereas before, I think we were just probably a more patient people, but we're just not anymore today. And that 23 minutes, I think, is important. Like, it's not like 23 minutes like sitting on the phone waiting for you, just 23 minutes in general. If I can't get the information, if I'm searching for it and I can't get the information quickly, I move on, because there's other options that are readily available for me. And so that's where that convenience kind of plays into an incredible important part.
You'll hear convenience a lot during this webinar, and it's because convenience always wins. I mean, that's the bottom line. One of our customers that we work with wrote this quote from Ancona Jewelers. So he Googled us, liked our reviews, messaged us, bought, and left us a review. The cycle is complete. That's exactly what you're wanting from your customers to leave for you guys. Find you guys on Google, love your reviews, message directly to you, you message them back. They buy from you, you leave a review, and then it continues that cycle. Someone else will see that review, and it'll continue on forward. That's what we need. Messaging gets the conversation started. The reason why it does is because it's not intimidating to send a text message, right? So when I think of, I don't know, maybe I'm airing out dirty laundry here a little bit, but if I think of like when I'm in a fight with my wife, I try to stay away from talking to her directly, but instead shoot her like a little quick text saying, hey, honey, do you want to talk real quick, right? It's because you break down barriers. It's easy to do. And when people want to conversate with the jeweler and they don't know how to do it, sending a text is easy to do. It's convenient. So that word comes up over and over again. All right. And more importantly, right, it's not more convenient, it's just preferred, right? 90% of customers prefer messaging. That's the bottom line. Think of yourselves and what you guys do. Are you messaging more, or are you calling somebody? Messaging is quick, it's easy, it's to the point, and you can move on with your day. Which leads to the next point, convenience is on the go. Customers can respond on their own schedule without having to play phone tag or being tied down to a computer. Just like I said, once they text message your business, they want to do something else. They're conveniently on the go, and they want to make sure that you get back to them and they can get back to you as soon as possible. All right, last one, interacting on their preferred channel. When someone is messaging you via text, they don't want a phone call from you. So keep that in mind. I know it sounds pretty straightforward, but which signals a customer tends to want to kind of direct towards you, you want to make sure you reciprocate that action back to them.
I think in my personal life, like, and you're probably very similar, if I get a phone call, if I'm in a meeting or if I don't recognize the number, kind of my first thought is, if it's important, they're going to leave a voicemail. If it's really important, they'll send me a text. Or if it's someone who I know, or like if it's a real contact, they're going to send me a text, and I'll respond to that. It's happened to me a bunch where I call someone and then they text me back, and I'm like, man, I just tried to call you because I needed to talk to you about something, but they prefer to send that text back. And it's just a funny time we live in. But that messaging preference is just prevalent not only in our personal lives, but that is bleeding into the business world, which we'll talk a little bit about here right now. And up to this point, you may be thinking, that's all fine and dandy, Jason and Nick. You want us to just cater to our customers, that makes sense, but it's not just about making things easy for your customers. This is ultimately about driving revenue into your store. And if you do it right, it becomes convenient not only for your consumer, but it becomes convenient for you as well. It becomes convenient and becomes a revenue driver for your business. So I'm going to dive into that a little bit of just how, right? Why messaging and why this kind of modernized way to communicate as a business with your consumer is actually going to drive revenue to you into your store. So first, in conversations initiated via text, they're 3 times more likely to end in a sale. We attend a lot of the jewelry events that happen throughout the country. Sitting with a 3-location jeweler that we work with, that was one of the things he brought up to me as far as using some of the messaging tools that he has. Is those conversations where they had to be kind of short before, with just phone calls or emails that's kind of cumbersome back and forth, or even in-store visits. Sometimes the conversations he says he has over text can last 5 days between them and that customer, but they're able to get a lot of stuff done. It's at kind of the pace that makes sense for both the business and for that consumer, and they convert at a really high rate. On our own side, obviously, we're not selling jewelry, we're selling software, but texting is an incredible tool for us as a sales team to be able to get a hold of people that otherwise is just tough. We're really busy, but we know the people we're selling to, they're also really busy, and it's the same with you and your stores, and that text makes it just very convenient to get the message across. And again, convert at a higher rate because you're able to share information at a convenient and at the pace that makes sense for both you and the consumer. Texting and messaging is a great way to just get leads into your business. And this is something I really want to emphasize is messaging for businesses. That wave is here. That was coming for a while, but that is here, and there is nothing that Podium or you or anyone can do about it because the major players in this space, they're the ones driving it. Google, for example, is investing in tools to make it easier to message businesses with Google Click to Message, so you can text in right from your Google My Business page. They're also revamping their whole text message platform so it's kind of like text messaging 2.0, which is going to open up a lot of doors for businesses to be able to utilize that. That's what Apple's doing right now with their business Apple Chat. So they're making it extremely easy, right, from an iPhone to be able to connect to their to businesses through messaging applications. Instagram you can text from now. Facebook continues to invest heavily for business messaging. And all these major players where people are looking and finding your business are going to make it easier and easier for those businesses to reach out to you. So then the question becomes, as a jeweler, how are you filtering that information and accepting that information, and how well are you equipped to really take on those leads and make sure that you're running an efficient business still? Just a quick stat here, businesses who add text-based chat tools, for example, on their website, we see 11 times more inbound opportunities than traditional contact us forms, phone numbers, or even live chat. The leads are more qualified. I think this is an important thing too, is with messaging, you can determine things before they take that next step, or before you tie up a phone line or walk away from that in-store customer to take care of someone on the phone or through emails. Texting is a great way to get some just general information on those customers before they walk in and step foot. You have a really good idea. Maybe you've already shared pictures back and forth, and they saw something on Pinterest and they're like, this is what I'm looking for. So when they step into the showroom, you're really prepared to close them at a higher rate. Also, once you have their cell phone number, that's a really nice thing to have as a salesperson, is the person you're trying to sell to a cell phone number. At the very least, texting and messaging gets your message across. So where emails or phone calls can go ignored, I look at my own inbox as of this morning. I cleared out my email inbox. I have 30 unread emails, and I don't know when I'll get to them, hopefully by the end of the day. But I have 0 unread text. If I get a text, I read it. At very least, I get the information. And it's the same with your consumers. They're opening, text messages have an open rate of more than 99%. What's even more telling is typically messages are opened, at least the ones that are being sent from our platform that we track, those messages are being opened within 80% of them, more than 80%, within the first 3 minutes of sending that out. So at the very least, people are getting that message, they're getting the information you're trying to get across. That will help eliminate a lot of your phone tag, or if it's just simple reminders, repair pickup, whatever it happens to be, it's a great way to get that information out. This is where I think it's important. We talked about, again, it's not just for consumers that you want to do this to make their lives better, it's to make your life better as well. Messaging is flexible and it's efficient. The jewelers we work with using messaging say it saves an average of 4 to 5 hours per week, freeing you up to focus on other things. Like I said, we are fully aware, right? You have a million things on your plate, and it's a tough gig to juggle all the things that go into operating a retail store, a jewelry store. It is not uncommon to have someone call you, and if it's a busy time, right, you got to say, hey, I got a customer in front of me, I'll call you back, or can I put you on a brief hold? And then you try to get a hold of them, they don't answer, or whatever, things slip through the cracks. There's some leniency that comes with messaging that does not come when someone's standing in front of you or giving you a phone call. There's some added minutes to that expectancy where you buy yourself time without having to be as quick to respond, again, compared to in person, which obviously should take precedence when they're in your store, and phone calls as well. So you actually save yourself a lot of time as well, and have, again, that kind of immediacy still, but a little bit more lenient on the consumer side for you when you're chatting in.
Yeah, so I just want to throw in a quick example. So I know we work with a lot of jewelers, as you know, but one of the ways that they're saving such a big amount of time is texting people for repair pickup. Instead of having to call people, leave messaging back and forth, shoot a quick text to like 20 people within a few minutes is so much easier. The response rate, like Nick said, is higher. They read it within 3 minutes, and then you get a lot more business done that way. So it's flexible, efficient, and convenient for you as jewelers.
Yeah, and it saves time, right? And as we know, time is money, and look, for every hour you save, you're saving yourself actually a lot of money and putting that efficiency into other use. Being able to manage more, Jason kind of alluded to this right now. You got repair pickups, you're able to let 20 people know within a few minutes that, hey, their repairs pickup is ready to go. And you can manage those conversations at once rather than having one person online and then it's just time consuming, right? So you're able to manage these conversations with potential customers, current customers, past customers all at once without getting bogged down internally. I mentioned this with the jeweler I was speaking with. Sometimes, not always, right? Sometimes it's a little bit faster conversion, but like sometimes we'll have conversations, a lead will come in and we'll have conversations for 3 or 5 days spread out. Maybe it's 2 or 3 texts a day and we're just working at their pace. And those convert at a really high rate for them because it keeps the conversation going. Even if you take live chat, for example, on a web chat or website, that requires that both the consumer and you are live, right, for that conversation to happen. Where messaging, texting, you don't have to have someone there sitting at a computer, and you don't have to rely on the consumer to stay on their browser. So that messaging can keep momentum going and makes it easy to kind of continue conversations where maybe you can't finish it all in one phone call.
I think another thing to keep in mind too is you got to think of messaging as a written history of your communication with this customer. Every single thing you talked about in the past, going back a year or two, it's still written right there where you can go back, take a look at what you guys talked about, look at customers, their preference, what they like. But in addition, right, some of our jewelers are even using it for quotes. So if they ever come back saying, look, I thought it was this amount. Well, no, here's our text message history. I mentioned it was going to be this amount. So it helps clarify some of those things also.
That's a great point. It creates better relationships. 7 in 10 businesses using messaging say it leads to better customer relationships. Again, I would just point out the way we now communicate with our friends and family is probably primarily through text, on some rare exceptions. My mom, I still call my mom, but I'll tell you what, she is getting she's got a strong gift game now. And so it's been pretty funny, in our family group text, seeing the gifts that my mom throws in there now. But, my brother, I talk to him nearly every day, but it's primarily through text. And I will say this, the businesses that nail this, that can get onto this type of relationship with their consumers, you move from being a jewelry store to their jewelry store. And everyone wants to have someone. I just had this experience. I'm looking to do some concrete and a fence at my home, and if I bring it up to a group, inevitably there's going to be someone who's like, "Oh, I have a guy. I'll send you his contact information. Let him know I sent you." Right? Like people like that type of relationship. People like to be able to be say I have someone, And when you will get on that texting relationship, when they save that phone number in their phone, next time they're looking for jewelry, they are not starting that search over again. They are texting you or calling because you're saved in their phone as a contact. And I know most of the jewelers we work with, and I'm sure most people on here, you do a great job of that already, right? That starts with customer experience, and you're doing everything you can in your store to provide superior customer experience. So this kind of helps take that next step of just being one of the saved contacts in their phones along with their friends and family, which is a really good place to be. Happy customers, more referrals, makes it kind of nice when they go to refer you, and instead of just giving you jewelry store name, they're actually sending over a contact card from their contact list or showing you kind of the convenience that they had working with you in the past. Again, that's what it comes down to. You are making it more convenient for the consumer, right? And by doing so, and if you do it right, you can make it more convenient for you as well. And ultimately, you just win more business. You win more business on the front end because you're helping yourself get found online. You're making yourself a very convenient business to start a conversation with. You do your thing, right? You know jewelry. You know how to take care of that customer throughout that process. Texting can be a big component of that. But then ultimately, you're really creating customers for life, and messaging can play a really pretty critical piece there.
Yeah, if you think about it, once a customer shoots you a text, your name and number is saved in their phone. How powerful is that? They want to make it convenient. If you just need to text you once again, hey, I'm just going to go back to that original thread and text you once again. So it's pretty powerful.
Yep. So let's again kind of get into some of the tips and tricks here of just how you can start today. That's my message a lot of times to jewelers I'm talking with is, one, you can do this. Messaging can seem daunting, and there are some inherent business risks that come with it if you're doing it wrong. Like if you're doing it from personal cell phones, or if you're siloing off your conversations, it can be a cumbersome process, and it might be like, oh, geez, I don't even know where to begin. But here's some of the things that we're seeing jewelers use that make it kind of an easy way to at least get started. Some of the things that most common, I guess, use cases, and hopefully you can take this away into your store and start implementing that.
Okay. After talking with our jewelers, these are the top tips, like Nick mentioned. Tip number one, schedule appointments through texting. It's easy, it's straight to the point. As long as they're getting a hold of you via that method, do it right back to them. So easy to do. Seems pretty straightforward, right? Tip number one, schedule appointments.
Tip number two is just send reminders. So appointments have a 60% higher hold rate when a reminder is sent via text. So if you are scheduling appointments for repairs or to do some custom work, whatever that is, the hold rate's much higher. When you are having people either no show or show up late, that becomes actually a kind of a resource drain on your business. And being able to send out just simple reminders of pickup, of your appointment that you have scheduled, of other things that you've agreed upon for that consumer to do. It's a great way to make sure that those tasks are actually complete and on time.
Yeah, I don't miss my dentist appointment anymore because they send me reminders every time right before.
I still miss mine because I don't like getting my teeth done.
Yeah, but it's the same way, same thing. So number three, answer questions. Everything at your fingertips, your inventory, budget, timelines, financing, and everything can be answered strictly right through text messaging. Not only via that, but anything else, any other questions that they have, is pretty straightforward to do right through text messaging.
Yeah, at the end of the day, sometimes it just doesn't warrant a phone call. Obviously, some things need to be happening in person. I want to be clear. That's not what we're saying today, is texting is going to take over how you operate your store, because that's not true. But it can free up a lot of things that you can focus then on your in-store customers and where the bulk of your revenue comes from. But sometimes, a question does not warrant stepping away from your showroom to take that phone call. Like, hey, are you guys open today? Do you carry to Corey? Do you have something that looks like this? Some of those questions can be answered very quickly through a text, where, again, you don't have to tie up a phone line or step away from your showroom or other things that you might be doing. Sending updates is a great way. Again, spending less time playing phone tag with customers is kind of the big thing here. Sizing, letting them know, hey, here's where we're at on the customization of this piece. You can send texts and videos back and forth, and visually that's really appealing to your consumer base. And a lot of times they just like that, right? They like being able to see those things. And you can do it through an email, but again, email is just so, it gets lost with the hundreds of other emails that they get on a monthly basis from every business they've ever visited. And so a text is a great way to make that personal and share those updates and share it visually and give something for your consumers to be really excited about.
Awesome. Tip number 5, enhance the conversations with pictures and videos. Now, this is something that you need to take advantage of, right? This is something that Blue Nile, Amazon, they can't do. Yes, they have pictures, but to send a personalized picture, maybe of you saying hello via a video, all of these things only can be done in their local business store. This is something you need to do because it makes your store look professional. It makes your store look like you're on top of everything there. So if you're not sending pictures and videos via messaging, you're missing out big time.
Yeah, we get excited about that. Like we're easily, as a just consumer base, we're easily visually stimulated. And then what's cool is they'll share pictures back. They'll show that engagement ring, and that helps build trust, right? Exactly. So interacting with those in that way, that friendly, kind of familiar, trustworthy relationship gets built. And we see this pretty commonly, people sharing pictures back. Hey, we got engaged, super excited, or a picture of them wearing that expensive watch at the formal function that you helped pick out the perfect piece for, whatever it is, right? Jewelry is an emotional buying experience, which is what makes your industry really fun for us to work in, and obviously it probably is what attracted you to it. Is there is always a story behind what you're selling. Engagement, obviously, but really any piece that you might be selling, that watch that they saved up for, or the earrings they bought for their significant other for this certain occasion. There's always emotion, and there's always a story behind the pieces you're selling, and building that trust to help them share with you what that story is. Being able to have that kind of that full circle communication becomes a pretty powerful thing.
Yep. Tip number 7, follow up. You're not going to get a sale every time within the store, but how easy is it to follow up with a customer regarding what we talked about via text message? And it goes back to Nick's point earlier. 99% of text messages are opened. 80% of them are opened within the first few minutes. Perfect way to actually communicate and follow up on leads, on sales, follow up on anything, even anniversary reminders or whatever it may be, or cleaning. Any of that is great via follow up through text messaging.
Last tip here is it's a great way to gather feedback. So everyone wants, look, you guys are working your butts off to run an incredible operation, and you train and you preach to your employees the importance of taking care of that customer. But messaging is a great way to gather feedback on how you were doing, both for public feedback, for a review. You see a high response rate there, getting that public feedback on the sites like Google, where it can help drive your business and help people find you online and tell kind of a very compelling story online. It's also great for private feedback, right? Just if you want to make operational changes to your business, see how you're doing there, and be able to get feedback on kind of soup to nuts what their experience was. So it is an extremely effective way for you to gather feedback both publicly and privately for your own internal uses. So that was our 8 tips to get started, or some of the things that you can actually start doing today with messaging. I hope that was helpful for you. We're actually wrapping up this webinar. If you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to myself or to Jason. My email is just nick@podium.com. It's pretty straightforward there, nick@podium.com. But yeah, with that, we'll turn it into some questions and answers. I think we have a couple here. Thanks for all the information. You're welcome. Does Podium interface with the Edge? We do interface with the Edge. Most of our common, like all the major players in kind of the POS, CRM space in jewelry, we do interact with. We have an incredible relationship with the Edge, so we can automate a lot of these messages for you. Kind of the big difference I don't know if this is part of the question, but the Edge does have some texting capabilities, which is great to notify people on a repair pickup, for example. What most of those systems lack is two-way communication. So while they can notify, that person can actually text back. That was a big part of our partnership with the Edge, is they wanted that messaging component, but they knew we were really good at that. They're really good at what they do, and so we kind of just teed that up together. So yes, we can integrate with the Edge, and both for messaging and for, again, review or private feedback.
Okay. Next question coming in. Says employees don't really want to text customers from their personal phones. How does the owner use messaging without having to do it all themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, this is just basically, how do you get it so the owner doesn't have to use their cell phone or have to do all of the the messaging themselves because you don't want your employees using their personal cell phones. And again, I touched on this. There's some inherent business risks that come with doing that. Like you, as a business owner or as a manager, I wouldn't want my employees having those conversations on their personal cell phones. One, they're going to start asking to be compensated for their cell phone bill. Two, you have no visibility into what they're saying, and there is there's some risk there, right, with just not having visibility into it. The other thing is that it decentralizes those messages, so it's hard to keep track. And if again the employee leaves, then that conversation leaves with them. So using a tool like a Podium, or there's other things out there, but obviously we'd recommend ourselves. We can actually centralize all those conversations into one platform for you. Most of the time, we make your landline textable. So instead of having a personal cell phone number being the one that the customer is seeing, they're seeing your store number. So if they decide to call it from that text message thread, it'll actually go to the store. So no one's giving out private phones. Those conversations are all in a centralized place where you have visibility into those, and it eliminates, again, a lot of those inherent business risks and make it very convenient for you as a business and for your employees to be able to utilize text messaging without, again, doing it on personal devices. So great question.
All right. I guess a follow-up to that question, Nick, if you just want to touch on it, is there a texting app or program such as Constant Contact, but for cell phone?
Yes, there is. Podium is one of them. So Podium, we can help facilitate that one-to-one communication. So I'll try to keep this really simple. There are other tools where for text marketing, which is kind of what you'd use Constant Contact for. When you get into really kind of text marketing or mass marketing through a text, there are some laws that you have to be aware of. So again, if you're like, just, hey, I'm going to blast these 500 customers with our sale, they have to have written opt-in for you to text them. So texting does fall under the TCPA laws. If you're doing a one-to-one communication, you don't need to have those same kind of opt-ins, and you stay on that safe side. But anytime you're using it as a mass marketing tool, you'll want written opt-ins. So Podium, we're not really in that space. We don't love the spamminess that feels in text, because we feel like texting is a little more personal than an email. So we keep all of our conversations as one-to-one communication, which I think there was another question about that, just with the legalities surrounding texting. This specific question talks about having prior written consent or consent from the consumer. Under TCPA, there is what they call implied consent. So if that consumer first reached out to you via text, or if they implied consent through a purchase or through visiting your store or your website, then you actually have that permission to do one-to-one communication. Again, I think the big thing I want to emphasize when it comes to legalities of texting is if it sells or marketing in nature and it's a mass text, then you do need some written consent there. Again, when it comes to Podium is built to keep our consumers on the safe side of TCPA. We work with over 30,000 businesses, and if you want to be super safe, you can start putting some of that like language into your contracts or other things. But again, at least on the Podium side, we are built to keep our customers on the safe side of TCPA.
Good. Give us a second. We're loading in some more questions here.
Okay, so this one's a good one. Would you suggest sending out text messages to inform customers about upcoming in-store events instead of calling them? Yeah, I think it's a great way to do it. You'll probably get a higher, at least they'll get the information probably at a higher rate. You could do both, right? If you really want to, if it's a targeted consumer base that you're reaching out to, that could be pretty time consuming if you're reaching out to hundreds of clients. But if it's a very specific event that you're trying to reach certain clientele, phone call is great. Again, what I would say about it is I'm in my mid-30s, right? And I feel like I fall pretty close into your consumer base now. Even those that are of an older generation, texting is so normal now that a lot of times if you leave a voicemail, that voicemail goes unlistened to. So I would just consider that as you make that decision as a store, is maybe you couple with both, but unless they pick up, there's a good chance they're actually not even going to hear your voicemail. So it's a great way to, again, push out information, let them know something's happening. But yeah, again, I think that's something you'll have to decide for yourself, and probably depends on the nature of the event. The other thing I'll just touch on, if it's through Podium, at least, you cannot do a bulk invitation to for an event because of TCPA. We try to keep things pretty safe there.
Yep. Here's a question. We already use Podium, but so many of our inquiries are from areas out of our market area. Can this be controlled?
Unfortunately, no. That's a great question, and I don't know who chatted that in, but feel free to reach out to me, and we can probably go into some more detail about what's happening. A lot of our retailers now do have an e-commerce component, and it really kind of depends on where you are getting that number out to, right? If you're advertising or if they're finding you on Google, it's kind of a unique problem. It's kind of a good problem. So if they're finding you on Google, it means you're showing up even outside of your market, which can be a good thing as you pull in consumers from other markets. But it's kind of a unique question. No, not technically. There's probably some best practices that we could help you with. So I would encourage that individual who's asking about getting inquiries from outside their market to reach out to me directly. Let's jump on a phone call and walk through some of those things. A question, do you work with eye contact, Salesforce? We do work with Salesforce. Eye contact, I do not know. Salesforce, we have a great relationship with, pulling and pushing data from Salesforce, and we're Salesforce users ourselves and meet with them fairly frequently. So, yes.
I think this is the last question that came in. Do I always have to be responding to texts at all hours then?
Yeah, that's a fair question, right? Like, do you open this gate of texting? Are you going to be like at 12 o'clock at night having a crazy consumer texting you? And the answer is no, right? Generally what we see is that consumers, when it's a business text, expect kind of that same hours of operation as a phone call or an in-store visit. The nice thing is you can see those messages, especially with inbound inquiries. What we can set up for you, like an inbound inquiry from your website through a text, for example, is just out of office or after hours messages. So if it comes in after hours, they're going to get an automated response. Basically says, hey, you've caught us after hours, we'll get back to you shortly or tomorrow, whatever it is. But what I hear from a sales perspective, a lot of managers and owners like that, because a lot of people are shopping at night, and then they inquire and they get that text and they say great, but then when they're sales reps or they go in to work the next day, they got 5 or 6 leads there that they can then follow up with and start communicating and hopefully convert that person to a sale or an in-store walk-in, rather than that person just kind of moving on to the next or forgetting about it. So
one thing to keep in mind, through Podium, we do send an automatic text message that goes out to a customer if they text your business outside of business hours. And like Nick said, if it's a hot lead, you may want to follow up as soon as possible. If you think it's something you can wait, they'll totally understand because it's outside of business hours.
Yeah, and what's nice is you can text either from the desktop, so you log into the Podium platform from the desktop, or through our app. Yeah. So again, you can do this mobilely, but it'd be through our app instead of your personal cell phone.
Which I think leads to the last question here. So can messages come onto different phones? What is the advantage of using Podium instead of just doing it on my own phone?
Yeah, that's a great way to end it. So Podium can go to different phones and different computers, but it would still stay under one inbox, one account that's shared, right? So you could have several users within that platform, and those users can have the app on their phone, but it still gives everybody visibility into what's going on. The nice thing of that is you can transfer messages as well to new users. So if it comes in on the sales side, but maybe it's got to go to your master jeweler for something, you can easily transfer those conversations, and everyone still has visibility and everything into it. So it becomes a really easy way to manage as a team all the conversations that are happening, while still having the ability to keep on phones if you'd like to. You don't have to download an app, and you can keep it off phones completely and just do it from the desktop if you choose to. So if we didn't get to your question, we apologize. We have a script on this. We'll make sure to reach out to you. But great question. Thank you so much for your participation. And again, we understand you have a lot of things going on in your day, and you chose to spend this hour or so with us. So we are very grateful for that. And I hope it was helpful. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us directly. Again, thank you very much and look forward to speaking to you next time.